أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير. اسمي Mustafa Bey. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This is my first installment on the segment entitled Notes and History, Notes and Highlights, Notes and Highlights on Moorish history. And today I'll be focusing on social organization in the early Muslim community. Social organization is necessary because social organization of the early Muslim community provides context and provides for us the components necessary for us to really comprehend its formation and help us in our quest today, as it is and was then the precursor to nationhood. This is something that we should thoroughly understand today. In pre-Islamic times, Bedouin society, of course, each tent would represent a family, and each group of tents would represent a clan, and each group of clans would represent a tribe. Over time, these clans would merge into one another and ultimately form what was called or known as confederacies, right? Okay, so, and when you see a law address or it translated in the Quran, sometimes you see the Confederates, right? This is what it's talking about. Some of these tribes would take on what we could call clients. These clients would actually bolster the smaller tribes in numbers, and clients were referred to in the singular as Mawla, and in the plural as Mawali. Now, clients or Mawla, the Mawali, were of two types. One was the free man who would contract with a particular family to live under their particular, under their clientage, and it would grant what we would call, I guess, like status, okay? And then there was the freed man who was a Mawali and who, once freed, chose to remain connected to a particular family, and the Mawla of a family would become the Mawla of the clan by custom and the Mawla of the tribe of the family that it belonged to. When the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam emerged from amongst the Arabs, all these precursors were already firmly affixed, and so the fledgling community blossoming into nationhood, it's the next step, basically. These things were in place, and so this is what the Ummah was built upon. This is the structure. The word Ummah, as many know, some don't, comes from the word which means source or origin or base or foundation or primary, and Ummah is translated as nation or people. In Quran al-Kareem, Allah Ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhal nasu inna khalaqnakum min tarakin wa uthna wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qaba'ila lit'arafu inna aramakum indallahi athqakum innallah alimun kabir. Subhanallah. Surah Al-Hujurat, Ayat 13. So, Sundry Moors, we find this ayat a mandate for nationality. As people, we are people who have been displaced by the events of times past. So we focus on the words of Allah in this particular ayat, Shu'uban wa Kiba'i. Shu'uban is derived from the word Sha'ab. That's the singular. Shu'ub would be the plural, meaning people, folk, nation, tribe. Uh, it's most unfortunate that in current times we find ourselves on the defensive when we bring up the term or the concept of nationality amongst the Muslims, because they've been kind of like politically socialized and conditioned into rejecting it based upon notions of asabiya. Uh, so, um, as a so-called African American community, we've been failing by perpetuating civil rights era stratagems in regards to rights to self-determination and freedom, liberation, and that's just. So anyway, for some to take the position of pro-self, and when I say pro-self, I don't mean anti-other, but pro-self in the sense that we're the most detrimental. We're in the worst condition. We're in the most severe conditions in this country, and we need attention. So in that sense, right? It's problematic, because if you emphasize that, again, you got the lurking charges of asabiya, and which are frowned upon, and so we draw our attention to the term asabiya. Hans Weir defines asabiya as a movement within the early Commonwealth of Nations. Notice that. A movement within the early Commonwealth of Nations which refused to recognize the privileged position of the Arabs, right? Now, of course, I find it interesting that that definition comes with a historical backdrop which provides a semi-philosophical foundation for the definition. However, the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, al-Khatim al-Nabiyyin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, is reported to have said that asabiya is aiding and assisting one's kin in the oppression and injustice against others, right? So it takes some fine tuning. You can't just throw the word asabiya out with a net and capture everything that would apply to our political plight and say that's asabiya. Nah. So also, it is reported that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "There are indeed people who boast of their dead ancestors, but in the sight of Allah, they are more contemptible than the black beetle that rolls a piece of dung with its nose. Behold, Allah has removed from you the arrogance of the times of Jahiliyyah with its boast of ancestral glories. Man is but Allah-fearing believer or an unfortunate sinner. All people are from Adam, and Adam is from dust." Now wrap your head around that. Anyway, so the point being, this asabiya thing, it's not just so clear cut like that. So we look at the 14th century Andalusian scholar by the name of Ibn Khaldun, and we find that Ibn Khaldun is interesting because he perceived it as the group feeling or the natural human bonds of solidarity and sentiment of belonging to a certain group, which for him was the source of the internal strength of the Muslim Ummah. In his view, it is the dynamic power for social cohesion, and in its absence, it would lead to social disintegration. Okay. Asabiya is only one component of Muslim unity, right? And then, and in the sense that he's talking of causing people to unite, it's acceptable as long as it is not no claim of superiority over other nations and no loyalty to so-called nation over one's deen. So, when Moors say proclaim your nationality, we're saying we're the only people in the United States devoid of nationality. We're born here, indigenous to here, yet you don't have a national origin. So, according to law, by default, you will be what's called a refugee, stateless person, so on and so forth. Or you go the route of putting your trust in what's called the 14th Amendment, which is problematic for other reasons that we can get into at another time. Anyway, like I said, this is just my first installment, and I want to drop little segments like this from time to time that will, inshallah, aid some of us in the better understanding of what it is that Sundry Moors are trying to do. You know, like my brother said, there's a lot of groups out there doing things and saying things, and we want to kind of like make it clear and distinct where we stand, that we are, you know, what you would call Sunni Muslims, or, you know, Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, right? You know, we're not the Muslims that are nitpicking with one another over do you shake your finger in salah, or you know, do you keep your hands to the side, or do you keep them over, you know, the right over the left, or, you know, all those kind of arguments are things that the Muslims have been doing, you know what I'm saying, like the moonwalk in that position, you know, arguing them things for, you know, before I became Muslim, and that was, you know, 20-something years ago. So anyway, it is what it is. There's no such thing as a Negro, black, colored as nationality, or African American, and so in order for us to access the rights that have been provided for us, you know, as Muslims, we declare our Moorish nationality. It is our Islamic heritage. It is our inheritance. It is our nisbah to Islamic sovereignty. And when I say Islamic sovereignty, I mean with the stamp of a state sovereign. I'm not talking about a bunch of people running around filing paperwork in the courts and making outlandish claims. You know, the treaty stands, and the treaty stands as a bedrock for the Muslims to rally around. Wallahi. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Mustafa Bey. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, to the Moors who follow the right guidance. Alhamdulillah.